Hello, friends. I know you know. Recently, we lost one of the rock gods, Ozzy. Ozzy Osbourne. Um, he was really something. I think people talk about his personality a bit more than they talk about his contributions to music. I know his band, Black Sabbath, of course, is always credited with inventing heavy metal music, which I feel like they may have, yeah, but what they were doing, I think, is something different. I've always felt like they were not that sort of that speed metal kind of thing. They were slow and dark. They're named after a horror movie, and they were trying to be dark. They were trying to be the anti-hippie, the anti-flower power. And I think what they were doing was a style of rock that they may have invented, but it was I think back in the day they called things like that acid rock or hard rock, and it was dark and moody, and it wasn't filled with those flurry notes of solos. They didn't have an Eddie Van Halen. The guitar player played these riffs, these thundering riffs that I've always felt were kind of comforting, kind of soothing. It's funny, I put on Black Sabbath when I want to sort of bring it down a little bit. It's almost meditative to me because it's not frantic. It's not like overplayed. It's very tasteful music. It's heavy and it rocks, but it's melodic, and you're listening to mood music. It's almost like soundtrack music. I feel like they were maybe thinking in terms of the soundtracks to the horror movies that they liked and things like that. And I think, yeah, perhaps they invented heavy metal or inspired heavy metal. But if you're into the what is called heavy metal in the present day, and then you've never heard Black Sabbath, and people say, oh, Black Sabbath invented that music. They invented heavy metal. You're going to go back and listen to Black Sabbath, and you're going to go, this stuff doesn't sound like the heavy metal that I like. It sounds like this sort of, I mean, when you think about headbanging, I think a lot of the headbangers back in those days were doing this sort of slow headbang. It's a sludgy, like a dinosaur walking kind of thing. It's the pace of a dinosaur walk, a thunder lizard walking. Iron Man. It's Iron Man walking. The version of Iron Man that Ozzy's singing about. But the record that, of course, started it for me, I got this album, Paranoid, which, of course, is very well known, and partly for the really goofy cover. Who is that guy? Let's see, wearing underpants or what? And anyway, despite the slightly screwy album cover, this album is so powerful and so heavy and so dark, and this plodding soundtrack kind of music to me. And in that respect, it is, in a way, it's a visual, it's cinematic to me. It gives you visions. The songs on here are like stories. You got your War Pigs, Paranoid, Planet Caravan, Iron Man, Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, Rat Salad, and Fairies Wear Boots. The songs tell stories or present characters or give you visions. In other words, they're not songs about feelings. They're songs about things happening. Like, you could make a short film based on each one of these songs. Visual, inspired by the visual language in the songs, the descriptions. It's like they were inspired by movies and comic books and the stuff that I loved when I was listening to this album. So I feel like, yeah, maybe they did invent heavy metal, but I think they were doing something different than what heavy metal became. Modern heavy metal, I think, came from later. I think that sort of whiplash kind of fury, frenzy, frantic playing, where I don't, you know, the speed of the guitar playing becomes a huge part of it. That I think was born in the days of, or you know, like Judas Priest and bands like that, and Scorpions kind of, and a little bit earlier than that, UFO. But then bands like you know, that big trinity, Slayer, Megadeth, Metallica, those guys kind of took it into another realm of, it was melodic. You know, when you listen to Master of Puppets, there's some great songs on albums like that. But to me, it doesn't sound like Black Sabbath. It doesn't sound like Paranoid. It doesn't sound like those songs. And Ozzy's voice, I think, it had a element of strangeness to it, but it wasn't this shrieking, searing scream from hell, and it also wasn't that sort of guttural raw 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 kind of metal voice. He had a singing voice. He is a rock and roll singer, but he had his own style. These guys all had their own style and their own way of playing, and I really love that album. I love all their early albums. I love all their albums, actually, even when they got a different singer. Dio, you know, Dio's stuff is great too. I love all of it, but to me, those early Black Sabbath albums have a film score vibe to them. The songs have mood. They're moody, and they groove in a slower way, and there's a heaviness, darkness. Like I said, a dinosaur is coming. You know, a dinosaur is walking. But anyway, that's my thoughts. And in memory of the great Ozzy, I recommend, you know, going back to the early Black Sabbath albums and checking out the origins of heavy metal and the heyday of Ozzy and Black Sabbath. They were pretty important to me when I was young, and I still love them. I still listen to Black Sabbath, the older stuff. But anyway, check them out, and I'll talk to you again real soon.